Hey guys, what's up? Jimmy here with another Lots of Games review. Today I'm going to be reviewing for you guys Destiny on the PlayStation 4. First off, I want to thank the folks at Activision for providing me a review copy to review for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So in Destiny, you have the setting where the game takes place within multiple locations where you'll have the chance to battle on several different planets and the moon. And the story missions can be played alone or with co-op. I had the chance to actually play a bunch of the missions, the story missions with co-op, and it was a lot of fun. The action was fast and it was furious. There's also strike missions or strike levels, and those were very, very fun as well. I was actually really impressed with how fun some of the bosses were for some of these strike missions. In Destiny, there is a lot of diversity in terms to the different areas in the game. In Destiny, it takes place several hundred years in the future, and humans have scattered throughout the different planets and the moon. And in Destiny, you all have the chance to engage in epic firefights across the Earth, Moon, Venus, and Mars. Now, these different planets and even the moon were visually stunning. I was somewhat disappointed with how limited my player was in regard to how I could explore the area. You know, you've got these levels that look so gorgeous, but I was really limited at how far I could go. These open areas, you know, you could explore only to a certain extent. You know, it wasn't like Skyrim where, you know, I would be like, hey, see that mountain? Yeah, I can go visit that mountain. You know, it wasn't like that. In Destiny, it's even more limited and a little frustrating in terms on how there are small hills in some of these areas, and I wanted to climb some of these small hills so that I could get a different vantage point when I was fighting off swarms of bad guys. And even then, oftentimes I wouldn't even be able to just kind of walk over a small hill. It was kind of weird. The design for some of these levels was a little bit weird. Visually, very stunning, but there were a lot of invisible walls that would stop me from exploring to a certain extent, even when this exploring was somewhat reasonable. In Destiny, there is a tower location, though, that you have the chance to regroup after a level is finished. At the tower, you will get rewards and new equipment. And at the tower, you'll also have the chance to store weapons and armor so that you can free up some slots so that you can get even more gear in the future levels that you dive into. Now, the gameplay and the firefights that take place in Destiny were just so much fun. There are a ton of different weapons that you'll come across in the game, and you'll have your primary weapons, you'll have your special weapons, you'll have your heavy weapons, and I really enjoyed finding on what weapons fit me the best. There are a lot of weapons that you'll get in the game, and it was fun comparing them to see which weapons had the best stats. In Destiny, you'll get to choose which class you want to play in the game. You'll get to choose either Titan or Hunter or Warlock, and each class has a super move that will charge up from time to time. And I chose the class of Warlock, and the Warlock has a supernova. And if you land this supernova at the right time in the right place and just cause major damage, it can be very exciting and very, very satisfying. Now, throughout Destiny, you'll have several different story levels on each of the planets and the moon. Lots of levels to play through throughout the game. Now, Destiny does have RPG elements that will allow you to level up, also to upgrade your armor and weapons. And when you level up, you will get new abilities. Sometimes you will have the option to play a level that is really challenging. And depending on your weapon layout and level you are at, this will ultimately determine on how much of a challenge you will encounter for that level. From personal experience, now if I was about to start a level and that level says that it's hard, they're usually right. Now this kind of lets me do a segue talking about on how Destiny has kind of like these RPG elements. Now, kind of going way back, growing up playing the Final Fantasy games, I would often encounter a boss or an area that would be almost impossible for me to get through. And often the only way that I'd be able to defeat that boss or to get through a certain area was for me to kind of level grind and fight off weaker enemies. And fight off tons of these enemies, level up and get stronger so that I could defeat that once almost impossible boss or very, very challenging dungeon. Now, I had a few moments with Destiny where story level or strike mission was just too challenging for me. So what was the remedy for this? I quickly found out that I simply needed to do a different strike mission or story mode that was more up to my level. You do have that options if you want to take on certain very, very challenging levels. It might take you a little bit longer to defeat that boss, but it can in fact be all the more rewarding depending on what you're up for. By now, I think a lot of you guys out there have heard about how the story in Destiny is not exactly one of the game's strengths. And for the most part, those complaints are valid. The Emmy Award-winning actor Peter Dinklage from the Game of Thrones series, he lends his voice as the ghost companion that you'll have throughout the game. Peter Dinklage is actually a really great actor. However, you have to understand that Peter was given a script and he had only so much that he could do with this script. Also, the companion that he plays is an AI companion. There's only so much that he could do. A lot of people were complaining on his acting skills. I thought he did a great job with what he was given. Now, let me try to kind of explain for you my problem with Destiny's story. Kind of put things in context or kind of explain it to you. Let's say that you go to the movies and you sit down to watch the first 20 minutes of the film. Now, at first, the movie is somewhat interesting and you want to learn more. However, right before you can see more, you get an emergency phone call. You have to get out of your seat, go out into the hallway, take that emergency call. So after missing about 20 or so minutes of the film, you go back into the theater, sit down in your seat, and you have no idea what is happening. Before you know it, you're at the end of the film, and there seems to be more questions than answers. In a nutshell, this is what the story is like for me in Destiny. There seem to be more questions as I get towards the end than answered. I was just kind of, really disappointed with Bungie and the developing of the story. I really think that Bungie kind of dropped the ball in a big way for this. So much potential was just kind of like washed away. So I have to say, if you guys out there are listening or watching this review, and if the story in a video game is extremely important, you might want to just rent this game. Now, if your primary focus in getting a game is fun gameplay, intense and exciting battles, and the story is just kind of a side note for you, I think you're really, really, really going to enjoy Destiny. Now, as I mentioned, I had a blast playing with these different firefights and boss battles, and unfortunately, there were a couple issues that kind of slowed down the excitement and thrill of the ride. There were two major issues. First big issue, loading screens. Now, on the back of the Destiny case, it says you will need at least 40 gigabytes of space on the hard drive for the game. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any loading screens. I understand. I get that. There's loading screens. However, the amount of time that you have to wait before starting a level is really outrageous. The loading screens were outrageous. I'm not sure what kind of difficulties or problems Bungie had, but the loading screens are really outrageous. I would not be mentioning this in this review. I have to say, the loading screens, I was like, holy cow, what is the deal with the loading screens? Okay, that's the first thing that kind of slowed up the excitement. Because like I said, these firefights and these battles, these levels were very fun and entertaining, and to kind of be halted, that was the first thing. The second thing were the network issues. Now, I know that a lot of you out there, hopefully, are not experiencing any of these network issues. And if so, that's awesome. I really hope that's not the case for you. I hope you guys are having a blast, playing to your heart's content and aren't kicked out of game. I'm really happy for you. I myself was not that lucky. There were far too many times when I would be playing through a level, and then I was taken out to the title screen because there was a problem with the Bungie servers. My hope I really hope that Bungie fixes these network issues as soon as possible. Okay, like I said, the story is in the strong suit. So if you're focusing on gameplay and the thrill of the ride and these exciting firefights, and you're in the heat of the battle, and all of a sudden you have to get kicked out, oh man, that's just awful. So I want to next talk about the competitive multiplayer. Of course, you have co-op levels that you can play throughout the game, which are really fun. But the competitive multiplayer, okay, so the first few rounds that I played, I was kind of expecting, I'm like, oh, Bungie, it's going to be a lot like Halo. And at first I was really disappointed. I'm like, dude, what is the deal with this multiplayer? This is not fun like Halo. What's the deal? It took me a while to kind of get the hang of things. Now, having said that, the more I played the player versus player multiplayer, I really enjoyed it. I loved the different maps. I loved, of course, the weapons that you have in the story mode you can take in the multiplayer mode. I loved being able to customize your character with the different weapons and armor and take that into the multiplayer. It was awesome that I was not only able to level up my character in these matches, but also earn new weapons and armor that I could then take to the story modes and strike missions. I have to hand it to Bungie. For me, they did a great job with the competitive multiplayer. There are lots of great modes you can play, and since there were so many people who bought Destiny, you should have little problems finding a match. As mentioned earlier, I had a lot of fun playing the co-op strike missions in Destiny. A few of the boss battles for these strike missions were downright epic. Some of these strike missions were so fun, in fact, that once I reached the final boss in the story mode, I was a bit disappointed with how lackluster the final battle panned out. By the time I finished the story mode in Destiny, I was at level 18. This was after playing through the story levels, multiple strike levels, and hours of the competitive multiplayer modes in Destiny. In Destiny, I was impressed with how much fun I had in the game. It all comes back to the story. Man, if just that story could have been more developed all around as a whole, this game would have just been downright epic. So guys, overall, as I mentioned, if story is your focus, you might want to just rent Destiny or hold off till a price drop, but if you are all about the gameplay with a little bit of light story sprinkled in, where story really isn't the strong suit, I highly recommend Destiny if you're up for a really entertaining, thrilling ride. The game visually is just downright gorgeous, and I'm really hoping that they kind of down the road fix some of those loading issues and network issues that I had. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed this review, definitely click on that thumbs up button, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later.